All right, it's Thursday night. Welcome to another episode of Real Monsters. I'm SK Barrett, and joining me is Wes Hobrick.
Hello, hello, hello. I
And
don't know how many of y'all are snowed in, but
not me,
we're getting some out there, but not much.
not me,
I
but in,
think,
in order, in honor of all of the snow this week, I'll show. I actually found a picture of Emerald's first snow when she was like, I don't know, 6, 9 months old. I took her into the
aw,
mountains to experience snow for the first time.
aw,
She likes it.
aw, there she is.
Yeah.
That's a lot of snow, too.
Well, that was in the mountains a little bit, a little ways up in the
Yeah,
mountains. We've had zero snow so far this year, which is not entirely unusual for the region. Um, we,
mm-hmm.
we, but once every decade or so, we'll get a huge pile of snow, and by huge, I mean more than 6 inches. But that's like
Oh,
once a
yeah.
decade or so. And some years we get zero. And this might be
And
one of those.
we've got, I want to say, just 1 to 2 inches on the ground right now, but I had seen where I think it was New York was getting hit pretty hard with the storm. Um, but yeah, that's the Midwest for you too, for us. My mother, growing up in Minnesota, told me stories about when they would get snow, literally snowed in to their house.
Yeah.
I mean, where you're talking enough to keep the doors closed,
Yes.
where nobody could even get out.
I've seen old time pictures from where my parents grew up in Idaho that were, snowdrifts up to the eaves. Uh,
Yep, that would be Minnesota too, definitely. Just glad I don't have to live with that.
yeah, yeah. We get a lot of days of rain here, but as we like to say, you don't have to shovel rain.
And this is true. It's great that you guys can put a positive spin on that too. Up there, I think it.
Yeah. What else are you gonna do?
Yeah, this is true. I think I would get a little depressed living in that kind of weather, but
Plenty of
it's
people
just me.
do. Let me tell you. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, seasonal affective disorder. There's just a lot of gray. I mean, we're at the basically the same latitude as you know a lot of places in like Minnesota, Wisconsin, that kind of thing. But we have
Yep.
overcast a lot,
Yeah.
and so
Definitely.
it feels darker. Well, because it is darker.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah, speaking of seasonal affective disorder, we're going to be looking at some bizarre psychiatry again with this one too. So I think we
okay, so
left
hold on a
off.
second. We're let me backtrack for 1 second here. We are still talking about this one tiny little county in Missouri that has
Yep.
a population less than AAA baseball game has in the stands.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
we are getting to
this
the
is
most
week
bizarre
this
part of
is week
this.
3 of talking about this one little place. Week 3.
Tiny town, big trouble, as the headlines say.
Oh my word.
Um, yeah, I can't even remember where we left off last week with it, but I don't know if we got into the shooting at the Abbey in Maryville, did we?
No, we did not. Okay, so this is also makes it hilarious that there's so much to talk about. We can't even remember what we covered and what we didn't.
Yeah, yeah, and
That's just insane.
oh, absolutely. In Nodaway County, where we had been talking about, they have, not even kidding, the biggest collection of saints artifacts in the Catholic Church in the United States are located in the county
Oh,
at the Conception Abbey, which
why?
is the that I honestly don't know why they chose to put it there, but I mean it's a Benedictine Abbey that sits in Maryville with the university that's there, and in I was just looking for the date. And I believe it was '02 is when they had a 71-year-old by the name of Robert Jeffress of Kearney, Missouri, about 86 miles to the south of the Abbey, entered with a Ruger 22 caliber rifle and a Mac 90 semi-automatic sporter.
Oh
He
man, I
killed
think
the
I have one
Reverend
of
Philip
those
Schuster.
rifle. I think I have that rifle. That kind
Oh,
of rifle.
really?
Yeah, they're fantastic.
And he ended up killing the Reverend Philip Schuster and brother Damian Larson and seriously wounding 2 other priests after, and then doing what a lot of these mass shooters do,
Suicide.
blowing his brains out. Yep.
I
And
don't.
nobody knows.
Nobody knows why.
Nobody knows why. The abbot of the place had a rather interesting quote. His name is the Reverend Gregory Pollan, Polan. He called the gunman a total stranger, adding, "We had not found anything to connect this man to us. Nothing at all." Um,
That's. I mean, nothing. The man's
nothing.
obviously thought there was something, right?
I would assume so. And maybe it's reaching, but people, when they looked at motives for this one, about the only thing they could cite that might have acted as a trigger was his recent divorce from his wife of a long time. But that's it. And even if that was it, it doesn't explain why he picked the Abbey to do what he did.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. No note, no anything. He just started shooting.
yeah, he just walked in and started shooting. Um, it's interesting too with looking at this from the curse angle, because the Benedictines, they're the guy who started that, Saint Benedict, was rather known as a capable exorcist and somebody who fought evil in the Catholic Church. And in fact, he is still prayed to for that. On the Benedictine medal, there's a few different letters on it that add up to the saying of Vade retro Satana, nonquam suade mihi vana, sunt malaque libas, ipse venana bibas, which translated means, "Begone, Satan, never tempt me with your vanities. What you offer me is evil, drink the poison yourself. It was alleged that the monks at the Benedict's Abbey, when the saint was still alive, tried to poison him a few times, and he drank it and didn't keel over. So,
Wow.
it's interesting. Clarence Thomas actually studied theology briefly at this place
No kidding.
before he was appointed as a judge. Yeah. Um, I'm not sure what made him pivot on that, but yeah, he studied at the
Yeah, one religion
Abbey
is the
for
same,
some
much the
time.
same as the other.
Yeah,
A lot of
basically.
people, for a lot of people, law is a religion.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. The way they look at all of that is very similar to how a rabbi or a priest
Yeah.
would look at it. The Jewish law. I mean, hell, the Talmud and
Oh
what
my
have
gosh.
you.
Yeah, there's no end to that. They've been at it for
Hmm.
a few thousand years now.
Yep, they have. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's interesting to me, having grown up as a Catholic, that people who believe in this idea of a curse on this area, um, that it would still be, that idea would still be in their heads, even after there's, all these saints' relics being kept there. Um,
Yeah, shouldn't that be a kind of a counter influence? These magic church bones.
yeah, one would think. One would think with that. I would assume it also means that there's a decent amount of Catholic people in that area
Well, you would
who would believe
imagine. I
that.
mean, why they do tend to, go together.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could speak more to that, but this is one corner of Missouri that I don't know all that well. Um, which is interesting because I've been to pretty much every other part of that state besides Nodaway. Uh, but this is only the start of the strangeness on what we're going to talk about today.
So there seems to be a very large number of counties in Missouri. Are they just not very big?
Yeah, most of them aren't all that large. Um, I would think that the largest one would be St. Louis County.
Like,
Um,
typically, how long would it take you to drive from one side of a county to another?
yeah, and you can get through a lot of these rural ones in maybe 10 to 20
Oh
minutes
heavens,
if
that's
you're,
yeah.
yeah. I
I
mean, if you're going, 55 to 65 on the back paved roads, it would take maybe about that long to get through them.
I couldn't do that on a freeway in the county that I'm in.
Yeah.
It would take close to an hour without traffic
Oh,
at freeway
wow.
speeds.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when you get into like St. Louis and St. Charles County, it takes quite a bit
Sure.
longer. Both of those being around the city proper. I'm trying to remember what the names of the counties are around Kansas City, because that's really, the two metropolises in the state of Missouri. You have Kansas City on the far west side and St. Louis on the far east side.
Yeah.
Not really anything on the north or the south. Um,
I mean,
so
we have sparsely populated counties, of course, like any state. Um, but they had to draw those lines really big to
yep.
round up enough people.
Wow.
So we don't have very many that are geographically small.
Hmm.
We don't have
Yeah, a lot of
nearly
them in
the
Missouri
yeah, we don't
are.
have nearly the number of counties that Missouri has.
Hmm.
Yeah, we have like a couple of dozen counties total.
Oh wow. I would say that's probably maybe about the same as Illinois. I want to say maybe we had around 30 total. But yeah, this this, like I said, is only the beginning of the strangeness that we are looking at today. Rewind about a year from the shooting in the Abbey
Which would put it
to
at.
April 11th,
Which would put it at.
2001.
Okay.
Oh, I thought I was getting a little bit of feedback there, but I guess not. It's kind of sounding weird for a second.
Oh, that could have
Um,
been me. I had to go close the door.
oh, yeah, yeah, that's fine. But yeah, April 11th, 2001 is like any other day in Skidmore. And about
Any other day in
and
Skidmore, somebody's getting shot and
basically,
nobody's a witness.
yeah, yeah. You know, this is about 17 miles away from Maryville in the Abbey that we were just talking about. Um, there's a 20-year-old by the name of Branson Kane Perry, and he's at his biological father's house trying to get it cleaned up and get the place ready in tip-top shape for his dad when his dad gets out of the hospital for an operation he was having, right?
Okay.
And he has a friend of his there who's a girl with him helping him. And he's doing a bunch of stuff in the house, and he takes a rolled up jumper cable from the house to the outside shed, and he just disappears
What?
into thin air.
In his
He
own
was
in his
gone.
own yard
Yeah,
with somebody else in the house
yeah.
and just
Just poof, he was gone.
aliens.
Well, this is where it gets really,
I mean,
really strange. Um, but yeah, they're they had no idea, what happened. He just disappeared, and the girl kept cleaning on the inside of the house and ultimately left. I don't know if she thought he was doing something, or
Hmm.
I don't know why she didn't question him not coming back faster
Right?
when you have a couple minute walk from the back door to the door of the shed. Um, which the reason that he even had the jumper cables in the house in the first place was he was also working on his dad's car outside.
Okay.
And there were a couple of male friends of Branson's who had been there, my understanding, earlier that day who were helping them. I think it was the alternator that was the problem.
Yeah. That'll
I could be
that'll
wrong with that.
that'll keep your battery from charging.
Yeah, I could be wrong with that part.
Man, I
But
could use a new alternator personally.
yeah.
My batteries need some charging.
Oh, yeah, the girl's name was Gina. I was just looking for my notes to find that part. One thing that she did say that she thought was strange, looking back on this, earlier before he took the jumper cables out, Branson had found something in one of the kitchen cabinets, took it outside, and he came back in. And so Gina asks, basically, what you doing? And Branson just sort of shrugs it off and says nothing. Um, and after that is when the whole jumper cable thing happened. And people, they were getting worried when they didn't hear from him after about 4 to 6 hours that day. And ultimately, it was Branson's grandmother who came over to the house that night. She found his wallet and his keys and everything and his van still there. And the radio was even on. And they had the furnace on in the house in April. So I guess it was still a little
A little cold.
cold that
Yeah.
year. Um, but she thought it was strange, and ultimately, she and Branson's mother called the cops to try to report him missing. And the police, from what they were saying, were kind of just
Unhelpful.
brushing it off, saying, yeah,
Oh, he's
unhelpful
a
would be
teenager. He'll be
the
back. He's probably just off with friends. He's yeah, that kind of
That's
thing.
what they were saying.
Yeah.
The quote from Branson's mom was sowing his wild oats,
He
is
had a
what they said.
girlfriend at the house. He didn't have to go somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have that fact, which that actually gets a bit more interesting and complicated too. The more that we're going to get into this case, but after a while, it became clear that there was, foul play somehow involved here. And the police did take it up in all seriousness, looking for Branson. And they raised a reward along with the family and private businesses in that area to $10,000 for information about him. But ultimately, what was interesting here would prove to come from a very roundabout way. In Columbia, Missouri, which is about, I would say, 2-3 hours from Skidmore if you were going southeast.
Okay.
It's on I-70 west of St. Louis. Columbia is most known for the University of Missouri being
Oh,
there,
okay.
the Tigers. Um, they make an arrest in Columbia of a man by the name of, if I can find it here, I lost where I was. Hanson's van, finding the
Mr.
radio.
Green Jeans. Was that it?
No, his name was, I forgot if it was John or Jack Wayne Rogers. That's who it was. Jack Wayne Rogers.
Oh my
And
gosh, he
this is,
cannot be a good person. He's got 3 first names.
yeah, it's interesting. I had a friend who we were talking about this with Gacy and said that nobody with a Wayne first name, they might as well just give him a parole card coming out of the womb. But yeah, Mr. Jack Wayne Rogers, he was a Presbyterian minister in Fulton, Missouri, which is close to Columbia.
Okay.
But this is 2003. The FBI arrests him. After Columbia, the locals, they bring him in for practicing medicine without a license. Mr. Wayne Rogers had been bringing in closeted transsexuals, people who could not afford gender reassignment surgery, or they thought that it would just bring too much pressure, too much self-hatred
Yeah.
to seek out a surgeon to do it properly. Mr. Wayne Rogers had been basically castrating men in hotel rooms using just local anesthetic.
No. Ow.
Yeah, it made my skin crawl to hear about it too.
What?
In a hotel room,
Well, of course.
he would
And
do that.
why wouldn't you use a hotel room for surgery? That's what
Yeah,
they're there for.
yeah. I mean, it's so weird. And I had been looking this up. I wasn't able to find anything specific, but
So
I wonder
did
if there
he?
isn't a fetish on the other side of that too, with the guys who are getting chopped.
Would have
If
to
there might
be.
have been a bit masochism going on there, but
So did he have any medical background at all?
no.
Oh,
He would read, books on anatomy and physiology and
well,
torture, he
And
bragged
torture.
that he knew the perfect way to impale somebody. But
Well,
yeah,
that's
they
not that's not really
arrested.
that's not really a delicate skill.
No, not at all. Um,
There's really no bad way to impale a person
yeah,
if
one
that's
would
your in,
think.
if that's what you're going for.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because they um he had a person usually with him taking pictures when he would do this too, and they found all of these
Oh,
pictures
Jesus.
on his hard drive of Mr. Rogers taking the severed members of all these men and putting them in plates, wearing them as hats, chewing on them. And he had actually said in a court filing that he, quote, retained ownership of the parts by eating them.
Well, I mean, from a legalistic point of view, there might be something to that. If you're a doctor,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's so
that,
weird.
yeah,
Um, just unbelievably weird. But they caught this guy after one of his, I don't know whether you would call him, quote, patients or
victims,
victims,
yeah,
came into the ER bleeding. And the urologist who was on call said, had this person not came in, they
yeah,
would have died that night.
yeah.
It was about 6 days after the operation went on that happened.
6 days?
Yeah.
Holy
And this
crap.
person finally went into the local ER. Um, but, ultimately, they arrested Mr. Rogers with that, and they would find child porn on his computer as well.
Shock.
But they found something that was even more telling, chat logs. And I have a sampling of them here. This is Mick Power. This is not Rogers. This is the other guy. Mick Power 2134. You got to tell me the whole thing from start to finish. I'm most intrigued. And now, Mr. Rogers, you want to guess his screen name?
Dick
Take
Cutter.
a wild guess. Bugger butt. Bugger butt.
Oh, jeez.
Bugger butt. Bugger butt replies to Mick Power. The boy was from Skidmore. Bugger butt. He was hitchhiking when I picked him up. Tied it to a tree with its legs spread. Prepared a steak for it. Mick Power, did it talk and scream? Bugger butt. Screamed nicely. It broke emotionally. And this, he
So
elaborated.
is this our missing boy?
That is where it gets interesting. They found this stuff after, like I said, arresting him for practicing medicine without a license and assault charges. And they find this in there and they relate it to Skidmore. So the sheriff, who we had talked about at the end of the show last week, Ben Espy,
Yeah.
he ends up going to this guy's house on the other side of the state in Fulton to serve a 3-day search warrant to see what they could find. And, that means they were digging up his backyard looking for a body.
Yeah.
They were going through even more computers. And they did find a shark tooth necklace, which I think we might have had a picture of
I don't recall seeing
from
that.
last.
I don't recall seeing that. Let me see
Perhaps
if I can find
not,
it.
but
I'll see if I can find it.
okay. But yes, that is Branson on the sign right now. Um, oh, I was just now seeing what Patty wrote in the chat. No, you don't drag Barrett into this, Patty. This is my neck of the woods out here in Missouri.
She's claiming it's my alien connection.
Oh, well, maybe they finally came to take you home.
They
But we
missed.
shall
They
see.
missed. No, I
Uh,
got no necklace photographs.
okay, that's fine. But yeah, they
What's the relevance of a
found it.
shark tooth necklace?
They brought that back, and Nicholas's Branson's father identified it as his son's.
Oh.
Yeah, and it ultimately got to the point when they were interrogating the preacher, Buggerbutt, Reverend Buggerbutt, I guess you could call him. They were interrogating this guy, and he basically maintains through all of this that no, I had nothing to do with. I read press accounts and I wrote a fictional story.
Mm, that.
Is what he was arguing.
Oh, hold on. Okay. No. There. It looked like this. There was a technical issue. So if you
Oh,
can, but it seems to have resolved itself. If you, you can write fictional accounts based on news reports, but that will bite you right where he liked to do surgery if you include things that aren't in the
yeah,
news accounts.
yeah.
If
It
you
definitely will.
if
Um,
you tell your story and include details that the public doesn't know, oopsie doopsie, you in trouble.
yeah, yeah. Especially when law enforcement gets a hold of you
Yeah.
to see what they can find. But like I said, we're nowhere even on the same pool board as the eight ball with this case because they lost so much damn time
Uh,
with what was happening
yeah.
by not taking it seriously to begin with. By the way, his gravestone. Oh, that's a picture of Buggerbutt right there.
Ah,
That guy with the blue behind him. That is Mr. Rogers, aka Reverend Buggerbutt. I just can't get over that name. Oh man.
Dick Cutter would have been not used that one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and they were totally inclined to believe that he cannibalized all these male members because the photographs showed basically that going on. And he had bragged to this person who ultimately reported him that he had done this hundreds of times.
Hundreds?
Hundreds.
I can't believe
And
even I can't believe there are hundreds of people that want their genitalia removed in a hotel room by a hobbyist.
yeah, who would charge them, by the way, $750 to do it, is what he said. But I wonder if there might have been some of them who were lured in under different pretenses, and maybe he violently mutilated them
Ah,
in the
yeah.
hotel rooms.
And they were what, too
Um,
embarrassed to say anything?
yes. So you have to remember, this is the
Oh, come
backwoods
on.
of Missouri. Are we having a technical issue there? My
Yeah.
side said it was buffering, but it looks fine now.
Well,
So I figured it was my connection.
it was buffering. Now I got a
Um,
error thing coming up.
want me to
Let's
keep
see.
talking or?
I don't know. It looks like it's working, even if it's not great.
Okay. Um, if there is anybody still left in the chat, maybe a little bit of feedback there to, are you hearing us okay? Let
I
us
mean,
know.
I'm watching the view of it through the uh, YouTube management app, and the image does seem to still be um, the slideshow still seems to be rotating. So I think
Mine is too.
okay,
I've got it
let's
up
just
right
keep
now,
going.
so
Let's
yeah.
if
Apparently, he had also said in this story that he buried Branson's remains down in the Ozarks, which is going to be extreme southern Missouri.
yeah.
Um, this is not to be confused with the lake of the Ozarks, which is, of course, the Netflix show. Takes place at the lake
Oh
of
right,
the Ozarks.
right. Good show.
Yep,
Very strange.
yep. They call it the Redneck Riviera, but it's a lot of fun down at the lake. I've been there many times. Only about 3 hours away from here, so. But they ended up going and trying to dig out of this little town down south of there called Quitman, Missouri, and they found absolutely nothing. Um, and it was so
all
sad
right,
too
all right.
because they.
So before you finish that thought, I want to get
Mhm.
your opinion on this idea of murderers not knowing where their victims actually are. That seems unlikely.
I think so too. Very, very unlikely because I would. And maybe it wasn't his first time if he did do it, Reverend Buggerbutt, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
I mean,
it's
I would
it's the
think he
kind of
would
thing
know.
that should really. I mean, if it's like 20 years later and things have changed and the topology's shifted and things have grown up and it's not quite the same, yeah, okay. But if we're talking a year
Oh, this
later,
is,
you know,
yeah, that is where we're at now. Is about 2003 into maybe 2005, um, where they're still trying to get information out of this guy.
yeah, I don't buy
And
that he doesn't know. I think that they try to give enough information to benefit themselves without actually giving up their burial sites. That's my opinion.
that I would agree with. And enough to allow them to brag a little bit
Right.
without necessarily lying about it. But it was so sad because Branson's mother basically implored this guy several times in open court to just say where he's at,
Yeah.
if you know.
Yeah.
Because that headstone that keeps revolving through, that's an empty grave.
Oh dear.
That is just a headstone sitting there. And Branson's mother died in, I think it was 2017. And her obituary stated that she was preceded in death by her son Branson.
See, Bundy never gave up locations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he mentioned a couple of times about areas, but he would never give up locations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wouldn't be too precise
Right.
about it. Um, that could be what went on here. And the other thing that's telling to me with it was the hitchhiking part of that.
Mm.
Because Branson's dad believed that he may have been hitchhiking to a party, even though his van was there.
And
And
left
that's
his
because
friend, his girlfriend at the house cleaning.
he, it very well may have been, but this is where it gets a little weird and people keeping their own secrets.
Yeah.
Before all of this happened, Branson was at another party where he told his dad that he was drugged and had gay sex with a acquaintance, I guess you could call him.
Hmm.
And his dad had said that he believed his son was a homosexual for quite some time. He was accepting of him, you
Okay.
know, but he also didn't want to, broadcast it out there that his son was gay. And he said that he could believe that Branson was hitchhiking to this party that might have been occurring. But
I
maybe that was just a guess on his part, too, on Roger's part.
yeah. I don't buy that you just without saying a word to some you invite somebody over to help you clean house and then you
Hmm.
just walk out the door without a word and go somewhere else. I don't buy
Yeah.
that's bizarre.
But now another weird thing that may point away from Rogers with it, but maybe not.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks after Branson disappears, get this, the jumper cables show up in the shed.
Oh, they had disappeared with him?
That is what I was trying to figure out. Is this a case? This is a case of Hanlon's razor, I think. Don't attribute to malice that which could be adequately explained by stupidity.
Yes.
Did the cops maybe just miss it with any searches that they did? I don't know. Or if it did just mysteriously appear, that I would think would be somebody seriously fucking with you
Oh,
about what's going on.
that would be seriously fucked up.
Yeah, you're talking serious sadism with something like that. Um, so I don't have a definitive answer of maybe they just overlooked it with an initial search.
Or did they even care about the jumper cables initially? They're looking for a boy. They're not looking for cables, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would think they would be intelligent enough to connect the two because of the story, the conventional narrative of what happened that day. Um, and I will say that I do trust Sheriff Espy
Mm-hmm.
more than the other law enforcement that we had talked about in Skidmore over the years. He
Right.
seems to me to be more competent and to actually give a shit about what he's doing. Uh, and remember, he already has the murder of the one that we talked about last week, who was beaten to death by her
Oh,
meth head boyfriend.
Whitmer.
Yes,
Gillenwater. Wendy
yes.
Gillenwater.
Wendy Gillenwater, that's it. I was having a brain fart there. Um, yeah, I mean, remember, he had to handle that.
Right.
So he's already got one big case under his belt in Skidmore. But yeah, and his idea of it now, the working theory, is that this is drug related. That somebody shot and buried Branson somewhere. Because they, after the Quitmet dig, they had another place that they were told about by a separate witness that they refused to, name for the press.
Mm-hmm.
And they went in to look where this person told them to dig. They didn't find a body, but they did find evidence that the soil was recently disturbed. So
Hmm.
there's a theory that the body might have been moved before they went in.
Yeah, rule number 4 on murdering somebody, never move the body a second time.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
I mean,
Pick a good
I don't
spot the
know.
first time and then stay away.
This is true.
Just
At any
in
rate,
in
they never found
in
him.
theory, I don't really know for sure. I,
He's says with a wink. Uh, but yeah, they found nothing besides the evidence of recently disturbed soil
Which could be,
when they dug.
honestly, could be anything. Although, did they bring like cadaver dogs?
They, I don't think they did.
Which is too bad because
With that.
cadaver dogs are amazing.
Hmm.
They can find they can smell out decomposing remains that are decades old and many feet underground. Um, so they would very likely, even if the body had been moved, could have indicated if a human body had been there.
I was just looking to see. I could be wrong with those cadaver dogs.
Because, yeah, the things that they can do with dogs are amazing.
Hmm. Might be able to have found something.
You know,
But the working theory is that he was involved with the meth racket that was still big in this area at the time. There's also
here's the other
some.
problem I have with that theory, and that is druggies are not known for burying people,
Yeah, unless it's organized crime.
especially.
um,
They want somebody.
but in that case, you're
They're
not
big
talking
into
about a druggie.
messages, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean they definitely are with that. Um, and if they would have killed him because he was owing somebody money, that would be definite where you would want to send a message, not just kill him to get rid of him. Which would make me believe if they did kill him, it was because he knew something.
Hmm.
And they didn't want him to talk. They just wanted him to disappear. Um, and I also didn't see any evidence, any hard evidence, that Brandon was a meth user. Now, there is some hard evidence that he was using weed and benzos, specifically
Yeah.
Valium, but that's a far cry from methamphetamine.
Yeah, that's going
Uh,
the other direction on the stimulation scale.
yeah. Oh, it really is, but it could also be something that he was using to balance out the meth use. If you're smart, let's just say you were smart and you wanted to use methamphetamine, you're going to use something like Valium to calm you down.
Then
You
what's
know,
the
after
point of
you've been
doing
up
meth?
for,
don't
well,
under,
after
I
you've
don't
been up for 3 or 4
understand.
days. Yeah, that's where I was trying to balance that out a little bit. If you're going to get the initial pleasure off of the stimulant high with meth, you might use something like a benzo to bring you down.
Just,
But
I don't know.
as far as I
Take
could
less.
tell,
I don't.
yeah, as far as I could tell, there's no hard evidence that he was using
Yeah.
methamphetamine. Um,
Well, you know, we've seen several times over the course of this show where police make shit up to fit their theories. Say, for example, the
yeah,
Yorkshire Ripper. Oh, she was out at 2 a.m. She's a hooker.
yeah, this is very true. And that was the thing with Espy. If you watch some of his interviews,
Yeah.
and this actually kind of segues into our next case.
There's
Maybe I'll,
more? Shit.
yeah, there is another big one. This is the other strange one, and arguably the bloodiest one that happened in Skidmore. And this one, you skip ahead to December of 2004, and the house of Bobby Jo Stinnett. She's a 23-year-old dog breeding mom. She breeds rat terriers and sells them in a little house in Skidmore. And one day in December, her mom comes over and finds Bobby Jo bleeding out in the middle of her floor. in that house, blood everywhere. And her words on the phone when she called Sheriff Espy was, "You have to get here. My daughter's stomach has exploded."
Not
Her exact
not
words.
words you often hear together,
Yeah,
and
let
not
alone in a
not in
small
literal
town.
sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is, again, a tiny, tiny town of less than 300 people.
Hmm.
And Bobby Joe was a little bit over 8 months pregnant with a baby boy. Or no, it was a baby girl. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And
one or the other.
that's the weirdest thing about this crime scene.
No baby.
Bobby Joe was bleeding out. The baby was gone,
What?
vanished.
So that's
And
why
what
it
had
looked like her
happened
stomach had
was
exploded because somebody cut the baby out.
a crude cesarean section had been performed with a butcher knife.
Criminy
Literally.
sakes.
Yeah. And the perpetrator had gone in, and I would take it as I would take the timeline as she strangles, or the perpetrator strangles Bobby Joe once and starts the cutting with the C-section,
Okay.
has to strangle her again when she regains consciousness, presumably from
The
the
pain.
jarring,
Yeah.
incredible pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that'll
she's
wake you
strangled
up for
again.
sure.
And the third time that she was strangled is what actually killed her, what was my understanding. But yeah, a crude cesarean section had been performed and somebody took the infant. And the police get there, and this crime scene, it is so bloody. They literally end up cutting the floor out of the room and just taking it with them, the police, for
What?
evidence,
They couldn't
because
get
the
an.
blood had soaked into the wood
Well, that
that
should have
deep.
made it real easy for them to collect samples.
Well, they also didn't want to move a lot of it
Hmm.
because you had marks from where the body had been drugged.
Okay. But that's
So
extreme.
yeah, they
I don't think I've
literally
ever
just
heard of
cut the
the
floor.
floor being cut out and taken.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of it a couple of times, but
Yeah.
it's exceedingly rare, as you said. Um, they did that, and they kicked into gear right away to try to figure out what had happened. And they got a call of a tip about a little red car with two women in it that was speeding away that day before they discovered the body. And that was the basis where Sheriff Espy calls the state of Missouri to try to get an Amber Alert issued.
Sure.
But the problem with that is you don't have a description of this baby. How
Br-
are you going to give
brand
an Amber
new.
Alert?
Brand new baby.
Yeah,
Hours
that
old.
that literally no one but the perpetrator had seen outside of the womb.
Yeah.
You don't know the eye color, you don't know the hair
You
color,
don't know
you
if it's
don't
a
know
boy
the
or girl.
condition. Well, they did know that, I think, from a
Okay.
prior ultrasound, and it was a girl.
Okay.
So that was about all they had to try to get an Amber Alert, and
Wow.
the state refused it. The state said initially, "No, we're not going to give you that." So Espy, to his eternal
Oh,
credit,
fucking bureaucrats,
lobbied.
man. They have
Well,
no imagination at all. They
oh yeah,
all they know is, they're just following the steps in the book, and if the steps, if what you need isn't in the book, following the steps, they don't know what to do. They cannot think for themselves.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. But Espy, to his eternal credit, he lobbied everybody he could think of quickly that day. He even called his congressman about 10 times to try to get through to get it. And he ultimately got his Amber Alert because he was agitating so much
Good for
to
him.
get it. Yeah, that's what I thought. How many county sheriffs would you see bugging their congressmen to get something done?
To be fair, this guy had a disproportionate amount of experience with weird cases.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Poor
No doubt
guy.
about it.
But Jesus.
I mean, in a town of 300 people, you know,
Yeah.
it blows my mind. But they ultimately went in there and they found the perpetrator, a lady by the name of Lisa Montgomery, after they looked at Bobby's computer and her website.
Really.
And this Lisa Montgomery, she was from Melbourne, Kansas, which
Well, there
is
you go.
about
That explains it all.
she she had a tubal ligation some years before.
Mm.
She could not have children. She was incapable of having a child. And that's where you get into this syndrome of fetal abduction,
Yeah.
which is what we saw happen.
And,
That is
and
what,
I'll tell you what, that was my first impression in hearing this description was that it was a woman.
mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Well, and we know quite a bit about it when you look at deviant psychology. Um, and that's where, basically you have a woman who can't get pregnant and is very neurotic about it.
Hmm.
And it can be so neurotic to the point that the woman develops what's known as pseudocyesis. And that is literally the delusion of pregnancy. And this is what's so fascinating to me. It can get to the biological psychosomatic level that you'll see legitimate signs of pregnancy
Yeah.
in these women.
Yeah.
Their bellies will bloat for no reason. Their breasts will swell. And they will look like, and by all accounts, be pregnant, only if you were to give them an ultrasound, there's
Nothing.
nothing growing in there.
Or a blood
Yeah,
test.
yeah. And I don't think that Bobby Joe had, or that Lisa Montgomery had pseudocyesis, but she definitely had a neurosis about not being able to get pregnant.
Yeah.
So she meets Bobby Joe, unfortunately, because they're both breeders of rat terriers.
Oh.
And she makes a premeditated plan to go over there under the pretense of buying a puppy and to murder this woman and steal her baby. And what is even more profoundly sad about this case, Bobby Joe and Branson were cousins.
What?
First cousins.
What?
Yeah. Yep.
Holy crap.
Yeah. I mean, it's just profoundly sad. But they
I've never
ended
heard
up
of a whole
catching.
town that needed to be like saged
Yeah.
or exorcised.
Skidmore is it, man.
Exorcised.
Um, but they ended up catching Lisa Montgomery after that. The Maryville sent a contingent of detectives along with the FBI going over state lines to bring her in.
And the baby
Um,
survived?
the baby did survive. They named her Victoria.
Mm.
God's victory is what their rationale was with that. But they got her, they arrested her, and I don't know why her husband didn't know more than he did. Because when she brought Victoria to Kansas, she, showed it off everywhere to
Sure.
the preacher and to all her social contacts. But initially, with that, she tells her husband, no, don't meet me at the hospital because I was pregnant. Meet me in a Long John Silver's parking lot.
Well, look, lady,
Yeah,
just say you're adopting.
yeah,
That's a lot less
yeah. Why
suspicious
wouldn't,
than just showing up with a newborn baby when you haven't had any indications.
yeah, of being pregnant?
Yeah.
I, and it's just profoundly stupid to me. Why wouldn't he ask questions about that?
Oh, you got a
Be
baby?
like,
I didn't know you were having a baby.
yeah, why are we here? Why are we in a fucking fast food parking lot? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he was in denial. I don't know. But they
Maybe
arrested her,
he
and she
knew she
spent.
was fucking nuts
Hmm.
and was just in had been so long in the mode of just going along to keep the peace. Like whatever, lady, just don't stab me.
Yeah, basically, you just leave me be.
Yeah.
In fact, the one of the Maryville detectives that went to arrest her that night, he said that was kind of the vibe he got when he went into the house. That she was just quiet, sitting in this dark room with a TV on that was blaring news about the pregnancy. And he, had to have his gun drawn because he didn't know if she was concealing a weapon
Yeah.
in the swaddling clothes that she had, the kid in.
Right.
Um, and he said that was the kind of vibe he got. But Miss Montgomery, she ended up spending her time in federal prison, and she was actually executed this year before President Trump left office.
Oh.
Yeah. She was one of the last women, I think, to be executed at the federal level.
Well, this is I got to say, you know, my my primary objection to the death penalty is that they get it wrong so fucking often. But
That's mine as well.
sometimes they do get it right.
Yeah.
This seems
This
pretty
woman
open and
deserved
shut.
it. She totally, totally deserved it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that she was insane on any level. She was a sociopath, is what she was.
Right. Very likely a narcissist.
Hmm. Her obsession with all that was she wanted that baby to have her face as the first face it sees in life.
Rather than just let her be born and then snatch her away, which is the common approach for
Yeah,
baby snatchers.
yes. Yeah, and that would be the difference there with baby snatching, like you said, versus fetal snatching when they
Yeah.
have to cut the kid out of the mother.
Yeah.
And I mean, you would
Yeah.
think that that would be a crime that would only be seen in the big cities, but no, it's actually on the rise. Fetal abduction.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
If
the
you're
Guardian had a very interesting article about it. I'll post it on our Facebook page.
Yeah, do that. Ladies, if you're considering fetal abduction, seek professional help. You're
Yes,
fucking nuts.
absolutely. Go and find a psychiatrist first.
Yes.
And that
You
it's
need
such a
help.
bizarre phenomenon. Um,
Yeah, yeah. It's very bizarre.
Such
Wow.
a weird phenomenon. And my thoughts were with that. If she really wanted her face to be the first one that the kid sees, if she
Yeah.
wanted to feel that rush, Why wouldn't you go become a nurse? Work at neonatal deliveries,
right?
you know? Yeah. I mean, to help the women
Well,
give birth.
that's actual work.
Yeah. That would be helping
Stealing
people.
People who steal things are not really generally big on the whole work ethic thing.
Yeah. Well, and violent sociopaths are not big on helping people either.
Right.
So, um, but yeah, it was just so sad, and my heart profoundly aches for that family to lose two people like that. But I almost think that Branson's case is the weirdest of the two
Well,
because
yeah, it's
they
unresolved.
still don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, it's unresolved. It's very strange to just vanish like that.
It is. And I'll also post it on our page if I can find where the reward is and where the portal is for people to give information if you think you know
There's a
something.
portal in Skidmore that explains it.
Well, no, not the portal to hell, but
Okay.
like the portal to the FBI office.
There's a portal at the FBI. But you
You
know
could
what's
probably call the
yeah,
Kansas City office about it if you felt like you knew something,
if
would be my guess.
yeah, here's a challenge to our listeners, both of you. Um, as you're going about your day over the next week or so, just notice how many times you find yourself in a situation where if things went just fractionally wrong, you could just vanish
Yeah,
down a drain, down a ravine, you know, who knows where, right? That you
yeah.
something could happen to you and no one would even know. We live that
You,
close to the edge, like every day practically.
we do. Where you could be the next Branson Perry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at that. What is it, 127 hours or whatever that movie is about the guy who got his arm pinned by a boulder
Uh,
in a
Oh yeah,
in a tiny
had to
canyon.
cut it off.
He
Yeah,
cut his own arm off. Otherwise, no one would ever know what happened to him.
yep. He would have rotted there.
He would have rotted
James
somebody.
Franco, I think.
Yeah, he did a good job with uh, that role.
Hmm. He
Um,
did. It was a good movie.
with so many opportunities that we have, even living boring lives, to just get swallowed up by something or other.
I mean, whether it's a local drug ring or whatever have you.
Or just an accident, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or just an accident. And wow. It's amazing to me everything that happened there. And that's not even 1/10 of the crimes in this
Oh
area.
my word.
I'm a, I'm actually working on a piece for it for a lot of them.
You know,
I've only covered Dr. Talbot in that piece,
yeah.
Kenrex McElroy, and the Abbey, and I'm already over 3,000 words for it.
I,
Might have to do another one for the others.
I've considered getting like a small RV and tooling around the country, gathering up weird stories from little towns all over the country, and I'm gonna make sure to steer the fuck clear of this place.
Yeah.
I
Oh
don't want to
yeah.
be part of the story.
With the way they are about outsiders there too.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, it's incredible.
Okay. Can we put
Yeah,
Skidmore aside for at least a little while? Guess,
I
holy
think
shit.
so. I definitely think so. Yeah. These are the two most bizarre crimes of the entire series of them in this geographic area.
The Green River
So,
Killer got 1 week.
yeah. Yeah,
Bundy
we
got
could.
1 week. This little fucking town got 3 weeks,
Yeah.
and deservedly
uh,
so.
Oh yeah. I mean, at four, if you wanted to count Villisca as part of that, being at the top of the Nodaway River.
Oh man, yeah.
Yep.
Holy cow. Alrighty, that seems like enough for me.
Yeah, me too. I think I need to try eating something.
Do that. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.